also want to say thank you to my mom and dad.
If you've spent any time on social media lately, you've probably noticed a growing conversation about celebrities and their children coming out as transgender or non-binary. From Cher's son Chaz Bono to Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter Ruby Guest, from Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union's daughter Zayn, to Charlize Theron's child Jackson, the headlines just keep coming. Some people are fascinated, others confused, and a few downright suspicious. So, what's really happening here? Why are so many celebrity kids identifying as trans or non-binary? Is this a social trend, a Hollywood bubble, or simply visibility finally catching up with reality? Let's take a closer look. First things first, no, not every celebrity has a trans or non-binary child. Many of the viral lists online are full of errors, rumors, and exaggerations. Some names are true and well documented, others are completely unverified. Confirmed examples: Cher's son, Chaz Bono, one of the most visible trans men in entertainment; Jamie Lee Curtis, who openly supports her trans daughter Ruby; Cynthia Nixon, whose son Samuel Seth Moses came out as trans; Warren Beatty and Annette Bening's son Stephen Iore; Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union's daughter Zayn, who has been celebrated for her courage; Liev Schreiber and Naomi Watts' daughter Kai; Charlize Theron's child Jackson; Elon Musk's daughter Vivian Jenna Wilson, who made headlines for legally changing her name and cutting ties with her father. So yes, it's real, it's happening, but it's not a Hollywood epidemic. It's visibility. Transgender and non-binary people have always existed. In every culture, every century, in art, religion, and history, gender diversity has been part of the human experience. The difference now is visibility and acceptance, thanks to changing social attitudes, digital platforms, and stronger legal protections in some countries. People, especially younger generations, feel safer being open about who they are. Celebrity families simply live under a magnifying glass when a famous person's child transitions or identifies as non-binary. The story becomes global news, something that would never happen to an ordinary family. But rather than seeing it as a sudden explosion, what we're witnessing is decades of silence finally breaking. Of course, there's also the media. Every time a celebrity's child comes out, headlines multiply instantly. Hollywood's trans kids, a new gender revolution in Tinseltown. Sensational, definitely. Accurate, not always. The truth is, the media thrives on controversy. Trans visibility is still polarizing. It drives clicks, comments, and engagement. And in the age of algorithms, outrage sells. So, while real stories of courage deserve attention, the constant repetition of celebrity trans kid headlines can create the illusion that every famous child is part of this movement. That's called visibility bias. We only see what the media highlights, not what's normal or unremarkable.
Much harder and, for a way longer time than I have. I hope that those opportunities present themselves.
There's another piece to this puzzle, a generational change. Today's teenagers are growing up in a world very different from the one their parents knew. They have language to describe their identities. They see representation in movies, series, and online communities. They talk about pronouns and self-expression the way older generations talked about fashion or music. For many young people, trans, non-binary, or gender fluid are simply parts of the human spectrum. Not something shocking, just something real. And celebrity kids, they're raised in liberal environments, often surrounded by artists, activists, and open-minded parents. They have access to therapy, education, and, most importantly, safety to be themselves. That makes them more visible, not necessarily more common. Some people ask, why now? Why are there more trans kids than before? Experts say the answer is simple. They were always here, but now they're being counted, seen, and supported. The American Psychological Association notes that acceptance and visibility drastically reduce depression and suicide risk among trans youth. When kids grow up seeing examples like Zayn Wade or Ruby Guest being celebrated, they feel less alone and more empowered to live authentically. Meanwhile, opposition often comes from misunderstanding or fear. Many critics confuse gender identity with social trends, forgetting that trans identities have existed long before social media or Hollywood ever did. There's also something deeply human in these stories. Parenting. Many of these celebrity parents, from Jamie Lee Curtis to Dwayne Wade, have publicly shared how their journeys began with confusion, fear, and learning. but the common message is always love. Jamie Lee Curtis once said, "Our job as parents is to love and support our children as they are, not as we wish them to be." That's powerful. And it explains why so many families are now speaking up, because they know their visibility could save someone else's child. Unfortunately, not all the attention is positive. Online misinformation, fake lists, conspiracy theories, and moral panic often distort the conversation. Some people claim it's a Hollywood agenda or trend, but there's zero evidence for that. In reality, these are individual families, facing personal, emotional, and social challenges just under a global spotlight. The irony, many of the same critics who say celebrities are forcing this are the ones who obsessively shared their children's private identities on social media, fueling the very visibility they complain about. So, what's actually happening? We're not witnessing a fad. We're witnessing a generational shift in honesty, a movement toward authenticity, a moment when young people, even those born into fame, can say, "This is who I am," and finally be met with understanding instead of silence. Trans and non-binary visibility among celebrity families is not the end of something. It's the beginning of a more honest era. When we zoom out, the story isn't about Hollywood at all. It's about a world learning how to talk about gender differently. It's about acceptance, identity, and the courage to live your truth, even when millions are watching. Yes, celebrities have the platform, but their children's journeys reflect something much larger, a cultural evolution that touches schools, families, and communities everywhere. At the end of the day, it's not about being a trans celebrity kid. It's about being human. Love, understanding, and visibility are what make the difference. Not fame, not trends, not fear. Because the more we talk about this openly, the less anyone will have to hide who they really are.
I hope they are presented with the same opportunities that I am.